Hi everyone, this is Boomy, and today we have Jeremy and Joanne with us. Guys, do you want to do a quick intro? Joe.
You first, Joe.
Well, my name's Joanne Lockwood. Hopefully most of you have come across me. I'm a freelance gig, diversity and inclusion specialist, speaker, trainer, panelist, opportunist, really, entrepreneur.
Good for you, Joe. Good for you. Jeremy Russell, I'm co-founder of the other group with Alan Walker. I've worked as a freelancer for about 6 years now. So seen everything going on around IR35 develop, including a couple of government contracts. Yeah, we were looking at ways to almost remove ourselves from the IR35 market. And by combining our services, we offer something slightly different. So hopefully going forward, we're going to overcome this by changing our business model. But it's certainly something that's impacting me at the moment, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm Boomy, so I'm the founder of Interim Market, founder of BZ Consultants, and Boomy Kasaveri, which is a conscious leadership coaching. So the reason that we've got on this video today is because of all this falafel around COVID and
falafels are nice though.
I know. I'm planning to have that for dinner.
I'm feeling peckish now.
but literally how, government has been doing a lot to support a lot of us, right? But what seems to be missing consistently is the self-employed, the variety of self-employed and freelancers like myself, like Joanne, like Jeremy. Like, we've literally got nothing. So I looked up at the universal credit as an example with my newly married husband, and we don't qualify for anything at the moment. Yeah. So we don't even get the £590 of universal credit. So I'm just a month.
What and
I know. So what's happening here? Jeremy, what's your take?
So my slightly cynical take is that the government have turned around and said, well, we can't get you on IR35 at the moment, so we're going to stitch you up another way. And that's just being honest. That's where I can almost imagine those conversations. Yeah, it's a really, really strange one. We kind of caught between a rock and a hard place because I've also looked at because obviously we've got limited companies, so I've looked at the business continuity loan, and they start at £25,000. And I'm sitting there thinking, do I actually need £25,000 to get through the next 3 months? Well, no, because we've just cut all of our costs out. It's, we've done that. Yeah. So do I actually want to go down that route and tie myself into something that's the next 6 years of paying it off?
But how does a business loan help with personal expenses? So, you know what I mean? I mean, business continuity would be used for business purposes, right? But
you could argue, I guess, that you, and I don't know the rules around this, that actually the payment of the salary is business continuity for the director. I'm waiting for a call from my bank to actually tell me A, whether I can qualify, and B, what I can use it for. So, and that's almost a week since I've asked them for a call back. So, yeah.
There we go. Joe, what do you think? What's happening here? I mean, why are we through the gaps?
Well, someone that founded their business effectively 2 years ago, I've submitted one tax return where, because I was a startup, I posted very little profit. It was all startup costs, equipment, basically surviving for the year. So any small business support I get is based on a profit so low I didn't pay tax, because that's all I reported. So at best case, it'd be worth £100 a month. Best case, 80% of nothing, sort of thing. Yeah. I'm also not a limited company, so I don't qualify for any furloughing, any continuity that way. I'm not in a position where I can apply for a loan. My wife is on furlough, so she gets 80% of her salary. We've got some reserves which we've been saving for a deposit on a house. So we've got too much cash in the bank to qualify for universal credit or any benefit.
Oh, right.
So actually, we're in a privileged position. We're not cash poor, and our overheads are low. I work on my own, so we can both reduce our overheads down to food and utilities and rent. So we're in a quite fortunate place that our overheads are quite low. So I don't need to earn a lot of money. Right. But I look at all my order book and everything I had, all the commitments I had to the end of the year, are just literally one night the Thanos click, everything disappeared.
Yeah.
And like everybody else, we're all trying to pivot online and reinvent ourselves. And it's like we're all chasing the same goal here. And so I'm just taking time out to reflect and think, well, actually, I just need to find out who I am again, reinvent who I'm doing. And I've got no government support. I'm not saying I need it at the moment, but for the next 3 months, I've got to live off my fat. And so I might argue that I've got a lot of,
I'm all right with
that.
I'm all right with that. Yeah. Joe,
So
I think the key point. Sorry, go on.
So I'm definitely privileged, but there are people out there that haven't got the buffer. They've got lots of commitment in terms of cars, houses, children, public school bills, whatever their life acquisitions were. People can't downsize that overnight, and they're burning, I don't know, 2 or 3K a month. They've got no control over it, and that's where the government isn't helping. Gig workers, micro businesses, people who don't have employees, infrastructure.
Yeah.
You could rate release doesn't help. I don't have rates, etc., etc. So a lot of initiatives don't really benefit the single lone worker.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the type of jobs available as well. I've seen a couple negative comments out there that go, "Oh, why don't you go and get a job? There are plenty of jobs available." Now, the kind of jobs available are frontline jobs, So yes, I'm fit and healthy, and I could go and start working in Tesco's tomorrow. But what's to say that that's actually not going to adversely affect me? And I have a family with 2 really young kids, so nephews, right? And other elderly people around me, which I don't want to then risk as well, because since I've cut short my travels and been back, I'm sitting at home for the past 3 weeks, but I don't see everyone following that either. So there is a real mix and match here, because both me and my husband could go and do a job. I'm sure we all could go and get a retail job, but you, Joe, are in a good position to have that bit of reserve. Whatever me and my husband had since the wedding, we planned and traveled. So right now, actually, we're paying penalty to even move our travels around. And so in positions like these, I feel really like usually I'd say, okay, I'm in a good position because I save. This year, we completely sort of thought we'd do this once a month. And so we don't have the business reserves, we don't have the personal reserves. So for people in our situation, it is really difficult. And I want to focus on those freelancers and mothers, so single moms who are working on as freelancers, as an example, who were making a lot of their income that way. What are they doing at the moment? How are they surviving? Because for a single person, the universal credit is less than £400.
Yeah, and let's not ignore the mental health impact of being a single parent at the moment and being stuck inside with with however many children you have. We've got a neighbour 2 doors up who's a school teacher, so she's still having to do days here and there, but she's a single parent and she's got 3 kids who are at home. So the mental health issues are huge in that respect. But I think the challenge as well is that, to go back to Joe's point, we don't really know how long this is going to last.
Correct.
And that's the stressful point. So yes, Joe, you could say, okay, the next 3 months I'm fine, and I think for the next 3 months, because of the type of business we're doing, we'll be fine as well. And that's when I say fine, it is really about cutting everything back. We have lost clients. We've actually picked up a couple of new ones because they wanted to take a slightly different approach. But they've we've cut our income, our expenditure right back, both within the business, because we're not traveling, which always helps, but also at home. So we can cover it, but beyond 3 months, it then suddenly gets a bit different. And that's when I think a lot of people like yourself, Joe, like me, and yourself, Bimi, will be going, hold on a sec, now I do need help.
Yeah. I think also the big consideration around startups. So Joe, you started as a startup. I started as a technology startup as well. So I have a tech startup that is not profit making. Technology startups don't make profits for a long time. And I'm not even raising investment at the moment because obviously we were in the sort of sales cycle. So what happens now to startups? Have they even put anything out there remotely for technology startups or founders? Because I fail to find anything that supports, new businesses.
Yeah, this is the world we're working in, as you know, Boomy, and there are a number of companies. I'm obviously not going to mention any names that we've spoken to who we were about to start doing business with, where they just had to say, we're not even sure we're going to have a business in 3 months' time. And that's not just about them not having a business. It's about them not having a house. It's about them putting risk on their marriage, their partnership, their relationship, whatever that might be. About putting their kids' schooling and education at risk. It's not just about what's visible. I guess that's the thing. And again, similarly, because they're paying themselves through dividends as and when they've got money, they're not covered by any government support.
And so, Joe, from your perspective, when this happens, what Jeremy's just said, when we reflect on that, there are a lot of people, and by my estimate, freelancers and startups, we're looking at nearly 2.8 to 3 million people in the UK. What happens when half of these companies go bankrupt because they can't pay their personal bills, so they have to go and find a job or get back in the market? Or what happens? What's the long-term impact of this on not just the economic sort of their bank balances, but also their mental health and their well-being?
I'm completely thinking about this. So I'm thinking that this is a short-term problem that will just keep being extended. There's no, this lockdown somehow in some shape or form won't be over in 3 weeks, won't be over in 6 weeks. I'm thinking September before we even come up for air and kind of work out what's going on.
Yeah.
So I'm personally thinking about how I can use this time I've got now to reinvent myself. So put my entrepreneurial head back on, wind the pointer back 6 months, say, right, where do I want to be in 6 months' time? Where do I want to be at the end of the year? What is my new business model? Not rushing out to pick on the bones that everyone else is suffering right now, trying to readjust. People who are working for companies are starting to get used to their remote working. They're not ready to be sold to. They don't know what they want yet. Managers still haven't figured out how to manage a team of people who they can't see. So I think there's a whole load of time where we need people to recover, but mental health is a big impact. If you think about some households, you've got parent A, parent B, child 1, child 2, child 3, all doing different things, all needing technology. You've got the two parents trying to use the kitchen table to run their separate businesses. They're trying to do Zoom calls for different companies, overlapping each other with different noise. The kids want looking after. You've got to feed. You've got to sort of educate your children. You've got to keep everyone entertained. So I've realised I've worked from home for 2 or 3 years, often on more than that. But I've never worked from home having somebody else at home with me.
Right.
So I'm now working from home in a 2-bed flat with 1 living area, and my wife's on furlough, so she can't watch. So when she's been at home, I've always not been working. So we've taken holiday together, we've taken time off together, we do stuff together. But now I'm trying to work. She can't watch the telly, so she hear it. So she's having to lay on the bed downstairs or in the bedroom watching telly. So her mental health, even though she's on furlough, she's now impacting my ability to work as a home worker that we never had before. So now we're having this new dynamic. So
it's different. You're right, Joe. It's a very different dynamic, and I've got a different dynamic again. That is, it might seem, if I tell you what it is, it might seem really petty, but actually it's completely impacting the way I work. So I've worked remotely, including home, for about 12 years. So I'm used to a process where I'm in my office. I have an office, a dedicated office. I've got the door open. Dog wanders in and out. All of those sorts of things. So if I'm on a call, every so often his head will appear here next to my thing, but that's fine. But it's quiet. Now, Debbie my wife is working on the community engagement team for Wiltshire Council at the moment. She's she's a library manager normally, so she's sat on the end of the kitchen table. So I have to have the door shut, which for me is actually quite enclosing. And because we're still having lots of calls and Zooms and online meetings, I can actually be in here for 4.5 hours, and it's really enclosing. And to a certain extent, I'm doing some work with a company at the moment, and their customer success manager is single. She's in a 1-bed flat in London by herself for 12 weeks.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm kind of sitting here thinking, I find this difficult for 4.5 hours.
Hmm.
I have so much empathy for her at the
Yeah.
moment. It's not 12 weeks, it's 3 weeks at the moment. But like to your point, Joe, it could be substantially longer.
Yeah.
But the dog doesn't get it either. He scratches on the door every so often in the middle of calls and things. So, but yeah, it's everyone has a personal challenge that they're trying to overcome, and we shouldn't forget that this isn't working from home. This is working through a crisis.
Yeah.
And they're two extremely different things.
And this is working. It's not working from home. This is working. We are working now.
Absolutely. We're just trying to do what we can.
Yeah. I'm just concerned more and thinking about the cost of bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So how many businesses, let's say, currently at risk, or even individuals, freelancers who can no longer afford to stay freelancers, that are currently sort of, what is the risk and cost of bankruptcy that we may potentially be seeing because of certain lack of support for a certain type of professionals?
It's not the financial cost necessarily. I mean, that is a big thing. It's the mental cost.
Yeah.
My next door neighbour said the other day, he said, for me, he said, I think the biggest issue here is that we'll see the number of deaths from COVID or linked to COVID. He said, no one will report on the number of suicides or deaths related to mental health that come out of this. He said, because there's no definitive link, but he said, I think it's going to be substantially higher. And I couldn't disagree with him.
Yeah.
Poverty, mental distress over finances, etc. Throughout my business career, I've danced with the bankruptcy courts a few times, or insolvency practitioners. So I think any entrepreneur who's had many businesses, I've sat in creditor meetings waiting for someone to come and have a go at me many a time, and I've even had a bit of personal rebooting as well. So I know the stress that's had. So I'm not a stranger to going bust, business-wise and personally. And it does really take its toll, because you go through the whole stages of death. The denial, you try and hang on, you try and claim at the last minute. You think, I must pay my staff, it won't pay me. And then before long, you've accumulated a whole load of personal debt. You tried to breathe cash to something that was dead. On a failure. And sometimes you're better off just taking a long, hard look at it and going, actually, this is going to go to the wall. Right? There's no point in ploughing more cash into this. There's no point in pretending. I've just got to say, I'm sorry, I can't. And then almost as soon as you make that decision, your mindset changes into acceptance. If you can get to that bit, acceptance, then deal with the next. Put those mitigations, but if you're not careful, you can spend months and months and months trying to cling on to something you cannot keep.
Yeah,
and it can also be something you don't have a control over. So I had a period of time where business was really slow, and I had to take a personal loan to fund the business, which in a strange sort of way meant, but that also funded some of the income for me as an individual.
Yeah,
but it's in the business, and that could be. I actually got to a point in time where IR35 was having such an impact on the type of roles. And everyone was saying, "Oh, you've got to come in as an employee." And I was saying, "But I've got my pension, my life cover, and all of that is through my company. So that sort of, I still got to pay those, and now I've got to pay them with pre-tax money." And actually, got to a point where I was thinking, "Well, this is pointless. I might as well just go back and be an employee and get the benefits of being an employee." And then everyone was looking at my CV and saying, "But you've been a contractor for 4 years. How do we know you're not just doing this for a short term to get until the market picks up and you'll go?" So I then I literally had to essentially borrow up to the hilt just to pay the mortgage.
Don't you hear that? I mean, picking up on that, what you just said there, Jeremy, is about how there's this distrust of freelancers going back into permanent employment because they want to fly.
Yeah.
But you don't distrust a permanent headcount lifer.
Yeah.
And stats show that people hang around for 2.5, 2.6 years, whatever it is, in a job. Yeah. So I always say, if I'm looking for a permanent position, I say, look, I've got 15 good years of me before I become old. I want to find someone to settle down. I want to give you at least 2 or 3 years of my life, which is more than any person's going to be honest with you. No one's going to sit there in front of you and say, be honest, I've got 3 good years I want to give you, and I will commit to that. And as a freelancer, I can say, yeah, it's just a freelance gig for 3 years. Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah. I happen to be on your payroll, and you class me as permanent, but yeah. And if at the end of that 3 years you can give me another 3-year gig, do you know what?
Yeah.
I'll hang around. If you can't, I'll go and do a 3-year gig with someone else. Completely. I had a horrible situation three years back, and I was in doing some work with a really well-known brand, and their attitude towards contractors absolutely stank, to the point that we were sat in a meeting one day, and their head of contingent workforce, big company, 40,000 people, was in this meeting, and IR35 had raised its head, and he actually stood in the meeting and he said, the problem we've got is that contract workers evade paying tax, and he used the word evade. And everyone went and looked at and was looking around going, knowing who the day rate contractors were, I was one of them. And that attitude, he said, and that's why IR35 is in. And I was kind of like, well, if that's the attitude of companies, and this is a big brand, you know, who could actually put the time in to understand it.
Yeah.
What hope do we have?
But people who are not in finance don't understand a fully burdened cost model. So the fully burdened cost of a permanent employee is X.
Yep.
All we're doing in contingent is taking out some of that fully burdened cost in terms of paying for holidays, training, recruitment costs, all this kind of stuff.
Benefits.
So, but all the benefits. So the fully burdened cost of a contingent is often less. Otherwise, why would we exist?
Yeah.
You know, we want the flexibility. We want to be able to contract and expand our workforce dynamically, and that's the risk we take.
The thing that always frustrates me about this is that the whole concept of the limited company contractor was set up by the government to drive innovation, to drive entrepreneurialism.
Yeah.
When it was set up, it wasn't set up well, and this is what they're trying to do now is pull that back instead of and making it out to be that people are breaking the law. Or at worst breaking the law, at best, you know, playing with numbers. But you know,
the stories in the media. So do you remember when Ken Livingstone was outed as a limited company employee of his own company?
Yeah.
Taking the benefits to his limited company, then paying, I think, his wife or his partner or something. So it was always demonized as this person who should know better is taking money from the state in tax by paying themselves and their wife through their limited company, and that's where this fiddle came about. But in reality, all you're doing as a self-employed person is you're investing in equipment. So if I'm a gig freelancer, I turn up with my laptop, I turn up with my kit, I'm using my kit at home. I've invested in me. The employees don't do that. The employees want a laptop, they want all this stuff. So
they expect.
With me capitalizing my infrastructure is no different to a business. It is a business. So I capitalize stuff. I claim VAT back on it because it's part of my trading. So it's not a fiddle. There's no fiddling here. But it's the media again painting these demonizing scenarios and stereotyping people as people who fiddle. What we're doing is we're running a business. It's just one of me in my business.
Yep.
And I think it's not just the media or just the companies. I think it's everybody who is not able to understand, like you said, the financials, like how a big business operates, so does a small business. And when one case goes wrong, they want to just generalize and paint the wash on every single freelancer or gig worker. But if that's the case, why don't they then demonize the big corporations? You know, corporations that's been evading taxes for so many years, despite
use the word avoiding taxes. That's the key thing. Avoidance and evasion are the key things. So correct. To a certain extent, you know, we as contractors avoid paying the levels of tax that you might do as an employee. And that's avoidance because it's within a government scheme that allows you to do that. But part of the rationale behind all of this was that we pay less tax because we weren't getting company benefits, so we had to pay for our own benefits. We weren't getting paid holiday, so we had to factor that in. So that's where it all came back to. So it's but evasion is something completely different. Evasion is and the avoidance of an offshore banking system is politically, socially wrong, but is not illegal. You know, it's just making sure we use the right terminology there. But
absolutely.
Well, I also say any permanent person who's in permanent employment, if they get their pay slip and they look at it and the tax amount is wrong,
Yeah.
they want to avoid
Yes.
that wrong charge, don't they?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
what we're
Yeah.
saying is we're looking at our tax return saying, I want to avoid what I don't owe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we're
Absolutely.
doing. It's not avoiding, we're not hiding stuff. We're just
No.
saying, this is the way the government told us to calculate that. I use my cash accounting. So if I
Yep.
haven't received the money yet, that goes into next year. If I'm traveling to meet clients, if I'm hiring rooms, if I'm providing my own equipment, that's part of my cost of sale, part of my onboarding cost
Right.
just to
Yeah.
exist.
Yep. Yeah. And absolutely.
And I think this is inspiring me to have so many more debates around the biases generally that the industry has. And I've been doing this for at least the last 18 months. So to get back to the point of what's happening at the moment with freelancers and self-employed, individuals, and the cost of bankruptcy and all of that, there must be one solution that the government could implement, which would be universal, but also very fair to everyone. Because currently what is happening, there is a lot of unfairness, right? And this is not only affecting people's financial statuses, but also their mental health, especially in self-employed and freelancing gig communities. So do you guys have a couple options that we could just throw in and, challenge the government a little bit to say, well, you could do this better and fairer?
Personally, I think the big ticket items for me are the place you live, so your home, your house, your rent, however you do that, the key utilities, gas, electric, water, the rateable stuff that you have in your home, the kind of the infrastructure you have to have. There must be some way of that not adding to the burden. A lot of these are either state-owned or they're so huge that not saying no one can afford to wind out the losses, but putting someone into bankruptcy to pay their gas bill is not the way it should be done. We don't want people being cut off. So if we can have some sort of blanket, we'll call it universal basic income, universal that covers your rent, your rates, your heating, lighting, and potentially your internet, so you can work from home.
Yeah.
That whatever that number is, so it's above and beyond universal credit, where we have this. I know I can live. I know I can survive. Then I think that's kind of a fair, but I think the government's in a rock and a hard place, but they've got to avoid fraud. And how do you fairly do that? But if I knew that my rent and my on cost without luxury was covered, and I could then rebuild my life, because if you look at universal basic income, giving people enough cash to take that mental stress away, allows them more creative, allows them to think about the future. If all you can worry about is I can't open that post, I can't open the front door, I can't listen for that phone call. And my banker ringing, oh no, I can't, I've got to avoid that. So that's where the mental health kicks in. So just giving that small comfort blanket for small self-employed or low-income people.
Yeah, and I think there's some things that would help certainly the lower income self-employed people that would also help others. And one of the things I posted on LinkedIn a couple of weeks back, and it was the comment that someone said but this is just common sense. Okay, so at the moment, the banks are saying, we'll give you a 3-month mortgage holiday, we'll give you a 3-month payment holiday on your credit card, but you have to call us to set it up. And if you call, they say, we're sorry, our call volumes are too high at the moment. You'll be waiting for 2 hours.
Right.
Why not go the other way round and just say, okay, all of our credit card payments for the next 3 months, we're not going to take them. That's essentially one click of a button to say we're going to stop taking the direct debits. If this will be the impact, you may end up paying a lot more over the length of time of the loan or whatever it might be. If you don't want to do this, get in touch with us, because they'll have substantially less phone calls coming in. Their systems will be able to deal with it, and people will be able to make that choice if they think, actually, do you know what? I've got savings. I'd rather pay this. So that's a simple change that will help everyone and make it easier for everyone to do what they need to do, which is to essentially protect their income so that they can buy food, to put food on the table when it's in the shops, to put food on the table to feed the families, which is where I suspect low-income families are thinking at the moment.
Yeah.
Really, that's their real stress: is am I actually going to be able to pay for food, to put food on the table, because the food banks are struggling and things like that. But if you took away that, turned it that way round, people's stresses would be less.
I think picking up on that, Jeremy, is one of the first conversations you end up having with the bank or your credit companies or whoever you're talking to is, by not paying will affect your credit rating.
Yeah.
And so
but they're saying no at the moment, aren't they?
No, that's because that maybe if they're offering payment holidays, but if you're asking them for a payment holiday, is it going to be different? So
okay,
by taking a 3 month payment holiday on my credit card voluntarily or asking for it, if they're going to black mark me, does that then limit my ability to bounce back later in the year when I want to access credit? So, well, you can't have credit now because you've got 3 missed payments in the Corona period. If they can say, well, they're going to freeze fair and reasonable credit easing and not penalise that for you, because I'm well aware through my background, credit is hard to come by for a year or so because of my history. And anybody who's now going to suffer that there will limit their ability to trade out in the future and access loans or access credit.
Yeah. So what you're essentially saying is over these 3 months, if whether it's an approach to take a holiday or the company saying you can take a holiday for that 3 month period, let's say, there's no impact on your credit rating.
Or it's a yellow mark instead of a red mark or something. So it's a soft mark rather than a hard mark. And
absolutely. What countries have impressed you so far with the steps they've taken to support people financially? Because there is a lot going on in New Zealand, Canada. There's a few really good examples. So
quite socialist countries, or driven by socialists.
Well, the Netherlands sounds pretty proactive. Having spoken to our friends in Netherlands, they seem to be faring a lot better in terms of salary for freelancers.
Yeah,
and that's a European country.
Yeah, it's funny. I haven't actually seen a lot of around the financial impact of it. It's more, I think the news is more focused on what's going on generally. So like Sweden have done nothing whatsoever in terms of lockdown and things. So, but I think it doesn't surprise me you mentioned New Zealand and Canada just because of their culture and their governments that they have in at the moment are quite. You look at the leaders in the world that we would love to have over here. You're probably thinking about those two countries first.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've watched the Chancellor's announcements at the 5 o'clock briefing, but one that struck me in the language, it's kind of, we can't help everybody just in case some people commit fraud. So we've got to create these certain rules in case to protect the country from fraudulent behaviour. So that's kind of create this bias, isn't it? We assume that everybody is fraudulent, therefore we've got to stop people being fraudulent rather than help people. So if you said everybody needs help, and then we deal with the fraud cases heavily. So make a really, really, really heavy penalty for fraud. But start by a position of trust, and the government is starting from a position of mistrust, which means that we, as we've talked about, are falling through the crack because there's no way the government can help us because they can't. If they help us, they help other people who are fraudulent. So we're penalised by being demonised with every other person who might be fraudulent.
Absolutely, and they're literally just doing this and have taken this approach when it comes to self-employed freelancers, gig workers, because MPs have also conducted fraud, businesses have also conducted fraud, but they're not sort of, as I said, earlier, they don't paint everyone in the same brush if they're not self-employed. So I think on that note, we'll conclude this session, but it has been so fantastic talking about it, and I think as I said, it's inspired a few more debates and discussions, which I will be sort of hoping to host in the next few weeks and keep the conversations going. So thank you very much, both of you, for your time.
No, thank you, Boomy. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, that's really good.
Good to catch up with you both.
Yeah. Thank you. Take care.
Take care. Look after yourselves. Cheers.